The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can always check us out on all our social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. Our email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and our radio website at xzoneradio.com. My guest this hour is Ken Pfeiffer. He is the chief investigator for MUFON in New Jersey. He's also the MUFON state director for Vermont and Rhode Island. He's the founder of World UFO Photos that has over 9,000 UFO photos on the website. It's www.worldufophotos.org. And he's also the founder of UFO Photos and News.org with over 15,000 case files from all over the world. He's a private pilot and was in Desert Storm he's a Desert Storm veteran, I should say, when he was with the United States Air Force. Joining me now is the one and only Ken Pfeiffer. How are you, old friend?
Hey, Rob. Hi. How you doing, pal?
Any better, and I just couldn't take it. Great talking to you again. You know, you're one of the guests that I have on the show that it feels like you and I are sitting in a coffee shop somewhere, having a couple of coffees. Of course, I'm an ex-cop, so I love my donuts.
Scotch and soda.
Ken, that was our secret. But you know what I mean, pal. It's always great having you on the show. And so tell me, Ken, what's new in ufology?
Well, we've been getting very busy. We've been, like I said, I go to MUFON's case files every day, and we've been getting a lot of photos, a lot of good photos. Sometimes a witness doesn't, they may give us a great photo, but they don't give us a great story that goes along with the photo. But of course, what I try to publish photos and stories that go together on my World UFO Photos and News.org. Mm-hmm. But no, we've been busy. I think business is picking up here a little bit. I don't know what's going on, but I think more and more people are excited about seeing a UFO, and they're coming out of the closet, and we're getting a lot of old cases also that people have seen things in 1965 or 1978. That it's just incredible, all the stuff coming out of the woodwork here.
In your opinion, Ken, you've been doing this for a number of years. What is your paramount proof? What is it that Ken Pfeiffer points to as the unequivocal proof that UFOs are real?
Well, of course, everyone points to Roswell.
Yeah.
I think Roswell's been beat to death myself, but I've always said I think one of the most important cases that there ever was the 1952 Washington, D.C. From July 12th to July 29th, they had, they were witnessed by controllers and pilots and a lot of people on the ground. These flying saucers were flying over the White House and the Capitol building, and as a matter of fact, they were also spotted down in Greater Wilmington Airport in Delaware on the same night that they were flying over Washington, D.C. I wish someone would really get into the investigation of this 1952 Washington, D.C. flap. They call it the UFO flap, and I think that's the smoking gun myself. And, of course, I guess politicians and everyone else is trying to hide it from the public, but I think that's probably the most important case we have, not to mention of the thousands upon thousands of military. UFO documented sightings from the military, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, the Marines. They have these things documented, and I think the proof is there, but I just don't think. I hope there isn't disclosure. I hope disclosure doesn't come, because I think that would probably be the worst thing that could ever happen to the world here, would be disclosure.
Really?
Yeah, I think the stock markets would crash. People would be jumping out of windows. The reason why I say that is people like myself and ufologists and people who follow ufology and UFOs, they believe in this. But we're a small group. I would say we're probably less than 1% of the population. So there's maybe we may be 3 or 4 million strong, but that's only 1% of the population of the United States, and I just don't think the majority of the people here or the world would. I don't think they'd be able to handle it if the president came on TV and says, "Hey guys, guess what? We've been visited by aliens for the last 50, 60 years now." And first of all, I don't think any politician or president would touch that with a 10-foot pole.
That's right, and poles usually grow only to 6 foot tall. Hey, Ken, you and I have to take our first break. Please stand by. Great talking to you again, my friend. Exonation, Ken Pfeiffer is our special guest. He is the chief investigator for MUFON in New Jersey, and he's also the MUFON state director for Vermont and Rhode Island. Here's a couple of websites. WorldUFOPhotos.org. There's over 9,000 UFO photos on that site. And then WorldUFOPhotosAndNews.org, and there's over 1,500 case files from all over the world on that site. And Ken and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. This hour's UFOs with Ken Pfeiffer.
Join High Tech with Corey K. weekly here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. From the world of computers to the ever-popular computerized gadgetry that are becoming part of our everyday life and living and society. From kids and their gaming devices, teens and their smartphones, to the applications of personal and business computers. From hardware to software, from standalone units to network computers. Join high-tech guru Corey K. weekly right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network as he takes on the topics that will be of use and great value to the international audience of the X-Zone Broadcast Network. High Tech with Corey K. weekends at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net.
And welcome back, everyone. Ken Pfeiffer is our very special guest of this hour. WorldUFOPhotos.org and WorldUFOPhotosAndNews.org are the websites. Ken, I would have thought that You would be for disclosure because so many within the UFO community, like Stephen Bassett and the people that he brings to the conferences that he does, all claim that they want disclosure.
I don't know what he's thinking. I really don't. Now, I'll be honest with you. I did feel that way when I first got into ufology,
Okay.
and the government, they have to tell the truth, but something like this, like I said, I don't think that people would be able to handle the fact that these aliens are flying around in our skies, and then you get into alien abductions, and it kind of, I think it's going to open up Pandora's box. I really do. I hope it doesn't come in my lifetime.
So how geez, you've kind of got me at a disadvantage here. You're the first person who's ever been on the show who is as involved in ufology as you are, who says, hey, listen, disclosure could be the worst thing that could happen to us.
Well, you talk about religions. I briefly listened to your last guy you had on the show there, and
did you hear me flush the toilet?
Now you're getting into the religions, and well, I don't see why that would make a difference. God created the heavens and the earth, so that wouldn't affect me in any way because I know these things exist. I still believe in Jesus Christ, so that doesn't affect me. But you have to have an open mind, I think, and I think most of the people out there, 99% of them, just don't. Even if you ask people, like, have you ever heard of MUFON? They say no. So that's kind of telling me that I'm always talking to people. I'll go to a restaurant and start up a conversation with someone, and then it gets into UFOs and have you ever seen anything strange? I'll talk to anybody. And the feedback I get from mostly everyone is, no, we've never, heard of MUFON. What is MUFON? And you mean to tell me you believe in UFOs and aliens and all that? And it's pretty comical. It really is. I think a lot of people they just don't know. They just don't know they don't want to know about it. So they block it out. They don't talk about it. They don't think about it. I'm sure a majority of them doesn't even look at the TV shows we had with aliens and UFOs and everything else. I'm sure they're probably looking at something else on TV. And a lot of people they will not be able to handle it. I feel that. From the bottom of my heart, I really feel that, and I hate to say it, but I think that the first thing that people would do is probably run out and get a gun. If you want to make some money in the stock market, invest in gun manufacturers. If the president comes on TV and says, hey, guess what, guys, there's aliens among us, as crazy as it sounds, I think that's the first thing that someone would want to do is they want to feel protected, so they would want a gun in their house. Not that a gun would be able to do anything, but that's just the way I think people think.
And of course, we're not talking about the illegal aliens in the United States or any other country. We're talking about the little guys from the UFOs. Ken, what is, based on your experience as a director with MUFON, what is the difference between a real UFO investigation compared to the so-called reality shows that depict UFO investigations on TV?
Well, I guess it's all depending on which reality show we're talking about. Some of them are terrible. Some of them I can't even watch. I'm ready to jump out a window after 5 minutes of watching some of these UFO shows. But I hate to say it, but Hangar One, the MUFON show they had on for 2 years, called Hangar One.
Yeah, I
thought it was an excellent TV show about aliens and the government and different cases they brought up. They brought up a lot of military cases.
Well, what happened to that show?
I guess it didn't come back. I guess they didn't renew it. Quite frankly, I'm surprised. I don't think it's going to be coming back for a third year. I haven't gotten the final say on it, but I'm not sure if it's coming back or not.
It's too bad.
Yeah. I thought it was. I'm a big critic. I'm a terrible critic about UFO shows. A lot of them I don't even bother watching. There are some people on these UFO shows that who are associated with MUFON. there are people who come on TV and they basically debunk this, they debunk that, and I have to turn it off. But that's one of the problems MUFON has, I think, is I love the organization. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
I stay in it for the case files. I stay in it for the photos, and of course the investigations. I get to talk to a lot of interesting people. Mm-hmm. Work with a lot of interesting people, a lot of interesting investigators. We have, police chiefs, and we had one of our investigators. He was ex-NCIS. A lot of law enforcement and military in the investigators for MUFON. There's many, and it's just incredible. It's incredible how some of these investigators, how they handle a case, and and it all, like I said, it all depends on what kind of a show you're watching on TV. Some of these shows are pretty silly, and other shows are very good, especially the shows that bring up a lot of the military cases. These things are documented, and they're more believable than just someone on the street who saw something fly over, and they normally tell you their story, and quite frankly, I try to believe all the witnesses. I mean, we have more to gain by believing a witness than by just saying it's a hoax or saying that they're making it up. And I try to believe a witness especially when I'm investigating a case in New Jersey here or Rhode Island. Some of the stuff you can't make up. Basically, they let it all out when they give you a statement of what they saw and how they felt, and it's just very interesting. I enjoy getting up every day knowing that I can go to my computer and see what's new in the UFO world. To me, this is very exciting.
What is your take, Ken, on cattle mutilation and animal mutilation? Are they part of the UFO scenario, or is that something that is totally different? Do you believe that the cattle mutilation and the mutilation cases are caused by extraterrestrials, or do you think that there's a terrestrial reason?
No, I believe it's extraterrestrial because I've had quite a few cases, especially here in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I had a case a few years back. I probably mentioned to you on the show about the Alloway Township case in South Jersey where we had a gentleman who was an amateur astronomer, and he had an observatory in his backyard down in Alloway Township, South Jersey. Now, in that area, South Jersey, is nothing but cattle, nothing but horse farms. It's very rural. And he has high-tension lines that basically run along, or that's, I would say, approximately about a quarter mile from him. So, you put these two things together, and he had just an astounding triangle sighting there that came over his observatory. It fried all of his equipment in his observatory there. Wow. He had a lot of equipment, a lot of high-tech, very expensive stuff that this thing just basically fried when it slowly flew over top of him. He gave a pretty big detail, and the thing that stuck out in my mind was on the bottom of this enormous triangle, there was a big black box. He said it was protruding from the bottom of the triangle, and we both sat down and thought about it, and he drew some photo pictures of it, and we came to the conclusion that it was possibly some kind of it reminded of a dumpster hanging from the bottom of the craft, and the only conclusion we can come to is we think that this craft was probably looking for either horses or cattle to take away is the only explanation that we could really come to, and I've had quite a few triangle sightings here in South Jersey. As a matter of fact, my wife, she has a tremendous triangle sighting there on Route 40 outside of Woodstown, New Jersey, and I think a lot of these triangles are trying to tap off some of the energy that runs off the high-tension lines that eventually run down into a Salem nuclear plant there that sits on the Delaware in New Jersey. So, I think they're, if there's such thing as aliens, then there has to be alien abductions. There has to be cattle mutilations.
Why don't they just take the entire animal? You know, they could bring the animal up to their craft. They can bring it to wherever they go. They could raise them instead of coming back and just leaving these poor animals' cadavers all over the place. You know, it doesn't make sense if these extraterrestrials are so smart. They're doing a lot of dumb things.
Well, I can't argue that way with you, but then again, how many of these cattle do disappear?
True.
I mean, maybe they are taking tons of cattle and tons of horses and tons of people, on top of that. They could be doing the same thing to people. As a matter of fact, I got an email a few days ago, and I've never heard about it, but they say that they found a couple over the border there from Mexico. They found not only did they find a couple mutilated animals like cattle, but they also found a couple mutilated Mexicans that got over the fence there, and they were on the USA side, and they were also discovered amongst some of these mutilated animals that were out there. So I've never was a first for me. I wish I had time to get into all of this stuff, but I'm trying to stay with basically the UFOs and the photos, but there are so much out there, so many new things that's happening. It's almost impossible to stay on top of it all.
All right, Ken, stand by, buddy. You and I have to take our news break for Amanda at the bottom of the hour. Exo Nation, Ken Pfeiffer is our special guest. Here's a couple of websites. WorldUFOPhotos.org, there's over 9,000 UFO photos on that site. And WorldPhotosAndNews.org with over 1,500 case files from all over the world. Ken and I will be back on the other side as we continue speaking about UFOs here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. We'll be back shortly. Ken Pfeiffer is our special guest this hour, Exo Nation. Here's a couple of websites. WorldUFOPhotos.org. There's over 9,000 UFO photos on that site. And a second site, WorldUFOPhotosAndNews.org, with over 1,500 case files from all over the world. Ken, what can you tell me about the Brooklawn 1974 sightings?
The Brooklawn, New Jersey?
Yes.
1974. That was one of my first actual sightings in Brooklawn. I was coming home from a club with a friend. I was in the driver's seat of his car. He had a 240Z, real nice car. Mm-hmm. 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. We're zipping home on 295 there, and we come to a very bad curve down there on 295. It's near the Mount Ephraim exit. It's called. Everyone knew it as the Al Joe curve because Al Joe's nightclub would basically sit on the other side of this curve. So we came under this. This was around maybe 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and of course I'm a passenger. I'm always looking out the window, always have. And we come out from under this overpass, and I look up in the sky, and I see a huge. It was a glowing turquoise disc. It was just above the overcast. There was a very thin overcast. I guess the ceiling was maybe about 300 feet. Mm-hmm. And this thing just stood out and it glowed, but it was heading. The sighting was only a couple seconds because we were going the opposite way, and this disc or whatever it was heading the opposite direction, and it was heading north. Now, the location, Brooklawn, New Jersey, that is in the TCA, Terminal Control Area of Philadelphia International Airport. So, right there, they're the only planes that are allowed in this area are planes that are either landing or taking off from Philadelphia International. So it just basically restricted airspace. So we, I said, did you see that? And he said, did you see what? And I told him, and I'll tell you, we drove around till the sun came up, looking for this thing, because it was really my first sighting I've ever had, and I've always believed in the UFOs. I've been a sky, a stargazer all my life, and so we looked and didn't see anything, and of course I went home, he went home, and then the next day in the local newspaper, I believe it was the Woodbury Times at that time, back in '74, they had an article about the Deptford police. A few Deptford police and some witnesses saw a UFO flying over that area. The Deptford area, Westville area, it's basically all connected. And I was glad. I was, because my friend was kind of looking at me kind of strange, like, are you making this stuff up or no? And no, I there was proof right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of. I wish I would have saved that article. As a matter of fact, I've looked into it to see if I can somehow get my hands on the exact date that it was, but that's easier said than done now. All of this whole information is still on a microfiche, and I have to go through boxes of old newspapers to find it. But that was my first one, and back in '74, and that was just that's something I'll never forget.
You also, I believe, investigated or witnessed a sighting going back to 2006 that were called the Westville sightings.
Oh yeah, that's West. Now Westville is basically right down the road from Brooklawn. That's the next town over, and of course Westville sits right on the river there. It's adjacent from the Philadelphia Naval Yard, and again the Philadelphia International Airport. And it was on my wife's 50th birthday. We went to a fireworks display, and the reason why they had the fireworks display on that night was because the week before it was rained out, and so they decided to have it on this night here.
And here I thought it was because you're such a wonderful guy. It's your wife's 50th birthday, and you went out you pulled out all the stops and even had fireworks for her. You had me there, Ken. You had me.
Well, that's what I told her.
Oh, okay. All right. We're on the same track. Okay.
So, no, it was 6/26/2006. That's my wife's birthday, her 50th birthday, June 26th. So we were there, and they had, again, it was very low overcast, and we were right there, basically right there on the river. There's a little lagoon that sits off the Delaware River there that's down from Philadelphia International. And they had like a little boat parade in the lagoon, and they had these people in their boats, and they dressed them up. They put lights on them and all this and that. And everybody was looking at the lights, waiting for this fireworks display to start. So of course I'm always looking up in the sky, and it was a very the ceiling must have been about 200 feet. I'm assuming, and it was very thick. And all of a sudden, this thing peeked out of the clouds. It kind of came out of the clouds and slowly went back into the clouds, and this thing looked like it had portholes on it. I would venture to say maybe it was, from what I could see, it could have been possibly about 100 feet long, but it had these portholes on it. And it just, slowly came out and slowly went back in. And one of my friends, also Sandy, she also saw it. And she was excited about it, that what she saw. And of course we were the only two there that probably saw this thing. There were hundreds of people at this fireworks display, and that's the only. That was really about it. And like I said, that was Westville, New Jersey, and it's right down the road from Brooklawn. I would say probably about a mile or two from where I had my other sighting in Brooklawn. So that's it seems to me, from my experience, all these airports get a lot of sightings at airports. You get a lot of sightings during fireworks. It's
really
like these flying saucers are flying around, wondering what all these flashes are on the ground, and of course they come down to investigate. It's alien common sense is what it is. So Yeah, that was just a couple of the sightings I've had, and I'm very fortunate. If I've told people if you're not looking into the sky, you're not going to see any UFOs.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Listen, Ken, based on your experience as a state director as well as chief investigator for MUFON in the state of New Jersey, do you believe that the occupants of these UFOs pose any threat to the safety and security of us Earthlings?
That's a hard question. I don't think so. I mean, if they were zapping people and killing people, I think we would hear more about it. But I really haven't. The only cases that I have seen are basically cases that these things may scare the hell out of you, and there's a possibility that some of these people may have been abducted. It's really kind of hard to say, and what they do during the abductions and what they do to you once they get them up into their spacecraft. That's who knows. But I don't think they're here to really hurt us, or I think if they were, we would have more cases about violence and with these alien UFOs and crafts and everything else. But I don't think it's happening, really.
I've got a question here from one of our listeners. I've got tons of questions here for you, Ken. But, I'm kind of greedy. I like to talk to you myself instead of sharing everybody else's questions. I'm sorry, X-Zone Nation. This one here is from Philip. Philip is listening to us in Gander, Newfoundland. And he would like to know your opinion of the Betty and Barney Hill case.
I believe it. That's for sure. I mean, that was one of the first really documented cases. There was a movie made about it. I haven't had the time to really sit down and go over it and review it because, like I said, there's so many cases, so many high-profile cases out there. But no, the Barney Hill, that seems to be very legit, and these seem to be two normal people, and why and how could they make something up so incredible? I believe it 100%.
All right, I've got another question here for you. This one is from Philippe, I believe is how you pronounce his name, and he is listening to us in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And he would like to ask you, how come a lot of the UFO reports that we hear about are in the United States and not as many as in other countries?
Well, it's funny you said that. I had someone on Facebook basically asked me the same thing, and what it boils down to is not everyone knows what to do or who to call, because MUFON is trying to recruit investigators all over the world. Of course, we want to have a ton of investigators in England and New Zealand and Australia. There are UFO organizations almost in every country, but I think what it boils down to is people don't know who MUFON is. They just don't know who to call. 9 times out of 10, they would call the police, and 9 times out of 10, the police is going to do nothing for you. They're going to tell you they can't do anything, or hopefully they might give you a phone number. Like being in MUFON, I'm hoping that some of these police departments are giving them the MUFON website or MUFON phone number where they can actually call in these UFO sightings. But I think that people just don't know what to do. They don't know who to report these UFO sightings to. Is what the answer is.
What do you think about the Canadian government not taking any more UFO sightings, that they're referring all their sightings now to Chris Rutkowski?
I don't believe it.
What do you mean you don't believe it? What don't you believe? Well,
I think like the Air Force. The Air Force says that they stopped when they got rid of when they closed Project Blue Book. They weren't taking any more information. They have to. I mean, they would have to take sighting reports from people who report things, especially if they were around military installations, if they had anything to do with the military. These cases are taken and possibly investigated, but I think a lot of them are hidden. They just don't want the public to know about them.
But how many cases do you think that are called UFOs by members of the public? And I mean the UFOs from outer space. I don't mean the the ones that are possibly military experimental projects. How many are? Let me ask you this question: how many are legitimate UFOs compared to non-expert witnesses seeing some military craft that report it as an extraterrestrial UFO?
I would say that at least 80% of them are real UFOs, and that other 15 or 20% may be military experiments. But I think people give the military more credit than what they're due. Everyone thinks that the military they have all these secret experimental craft, and they do have some, of course. But I think people just kind of take it to the next step and think that we may be flying around in these ultrasonic triangles and disc, the flying saucer type disc. And I really don't think it's the case. I think that most of these sightings that people see are actually it's the real thing. I'd say 85% of them I feel are real UFOs.
All right, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. You know what? Never mind. We're not going to take the break. Craig, just let's keep going. Ken's a good guest, and what the heck? I'm enjoying this tonight. So we're not going to take the break, but I'm going to ask you something. National figures on UFO sightings state that 5% remain unexplained, but you, I believe, feel like it's more like 25%.
I think that figure may even be higher. First of all, I'm wondering where they're getting all these statistics from. Where they take these surveys of how many people believe in UFOs and who doesn't. To me, it's a laugh. It's a real joke.
But people outside the UFO community say the same thing when they see a survey that shows a high number of believers in UFOs. So where do you draw the happy line between both?
That basically depends on who who's putting out this information. Some of this information may be very biased. If MUFON's putting out the information, the numbers may be different than someone else putting out all this information. So that's a hard question. It's really hard to say. It's almost, I think it's almost impossible to be able to pinpoint exact numbers. Like I said, it all depends on who you're surveying. I think the numbers are much higher than what they're saying, basically.
If someone tonight listening to the show was to see a UFO tomorrow, what should they do? What information should they mark down and get to MUFON?
Well, they should really sit down and think about what they saw. They should be, MUFON has a pretty detailed questionnaire. They're asking you the temperature and was there any winds that night? Was it windy? Was it cloudy? The shape of the object, any lights, any, things protruding from the object. So it's basically sitting down and writing out in a very detailed way as to what you saw, and like I said, the best place to report it would be MUFON. www.mufon.com, and they have a pretty detailed questionnaire which kind of helps us investigators out. After someone fills out this questionnaire and we get the case in our file and look over the case, we have a pretty good idea as to what the witness had seen, the direction it was coming from, the direction it was going to. There's a lot of good info. It's basically sitting down and really thinking about what you saw, and that's really about the best thing you do.
Okay, I've got a question here from Martha, who's listening to us. I believe it's Spokane, Washington, and Martha would like to know. She sent me a big email, so I'm just going to try and get the gist of it. If you believe there are any alien bases on the moon.
I think the moon is the perfect place for alien bases. I think there are a lot of these ships, these flying saucers are coming from the moon. Perfect place to park your saucer, you know.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds. And then, you know, then you get into, did we really go to the moon? You know, that I guess that's a subject for another show.
Yeah.
But frankly, I don't think we went to the moon in '69.
Why do you say that?
I don't think we had the technology to do it.
Wow.
Matter of fact, I was on a website tonight, something about where the China, and you have to check your sources. You know, sometimes these sources are really, they're either fakes or they're real. But make a very long story short, China apparently sent their probes up there on the moon and couldn't find any of these landing areas that we claimed we were at for all the Apollo missions. They were up there, and they sent their, their probes and everything else that landed on the moon. Apparently, China did this.
So why do you think that the American government and all the technical support staff, as well as the astronauts, would lie about this?
Pressure. I think Kennedy promised we'd be on the moon by the end of the century, by the end of the decade, which was 1970. And pressure from the Russians, you know, the Russians already beat us in space. Pressure from them. And you know, another question is, Russia never put a man on the moon.
No,
I mean, they were basically beating us in the space race.
But they did put robotic craft on the moon.
Now I feel that's possible.
Yeah,
you know,
this is well-known historical fact that you know, Russia did beat America to the moon. So what, you know, like, how many people would have to be involved in this cover-up? I think this cover-up it outbeats the fact that maybe we are being visited. And man, this is big. Like, you've dropped two big bombs on us tonight. Number one, you say that disclosure would be dangerous. Number two, you don't believe that America went to the moon.
Well,
wow.
I've been doing a lot of research. Something I do. Go on my website. Go on to the Moon Gallery, worldufophotos.org, or Google fake moon landing, the fake moon 69.
Yeah.
And you'll read for days of all the information. You know, I'm not the only one.
No, I know you're not. In fact, I had Bart Sibrel on the show years ago, and Bart did a fascinating documentary called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon." And he was able to corner astronauts and wanted them to swear on the Bible that they actually went to the moon, and not one astronaut would.
I think it was a lot of pressure with the astronauts also.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the astronauts. You know, of course, the first astronauts, Gordon Cooper and
Schirra. You also had John Glenn, of course.
Yeah, they were the Gemini.
Yeah.
No, Mercury. They were the Mercury astronauts.
Well, yeah, John Glenn was the first American to orbit the Earth 3 times in Friendship 7.
And Shepard was the first one to go up first American to go up in space. Of course, he went up like a cannonball and came down like a cannonball.
Exactly. What goes up must come down. Hey, listen, Ken, we've come to the point where you and I have to say so long for tonight. I want to thank you ever so much for coming on the show, and I can't wait for you to come back. So take care of yourself, my friend. Always great talking.
It's an honor. Thank you. It's an honor for being on your show. I want to put a shout out to Amanda Karen. She's a good coordinator. And
she sure is. She's a great lady. Take care of yourself, my friend, and until the next time we meet back here in the X Zone, take care of yourself, and always, take care of the wife. More fireworks next time.
You got it.
All right, buddy. X Zone Nation, my guest this hour has been Ken Pfeiffer, And if you'd like to find out more about Ken, here's two websites, worldufophotos.org and worldufophotosannews.org. That's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction, and fiction, well, 9 times out of 10 is stranger than reality. So until tomorrow night, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.